Emily always had this way of entering a room like she expected everyone to look up. Not in an arrogant, obvious way, no, she was smarter than that. Calculated. She wore her charm like perfume. Subtle at first, but strong enough to linger. People liked her, trusted her. So did I. Once. The first time I noticed something was wrong, it was the sound of her laugh. Sounds weird, I know, but trust me. When you've spent over a decade with someone, you learn their laugh inside out. This one was different. Lighter, higher, almost rehearsed. It wasn't meant for me. It slipped out during one of her conference calls in the next room, and I paused mid-email to listen. I didn't ask. I wasn't there yet. You don't want to be that guy, right? The one who accuses his wife of cheating just because she laughed weird. So I let it go. But my gut didn't. I work in finance, numbers make sense. Patterns make sense. People? Not so much. But lately, Emily had become unpredictable in the most predictable ways. The phone face down. The bathroom trips with her phone in hand. The sudden interest in Pilates with no soreness after. Her hair changed. Her perfume changed. She started showering at night, even though she used to say showers helped her wake up in the morning. Then there was the day she vanished. That wasn't a metaphor. She vanished. It was a Friday. She kissed me on the cheek and said she was grabbing groceries and picking up Ava from dance class. It was 3:12 p.m. By 4:30, I hadn't heard from her. Ava called me from her coach's phone, asking why no one picked her up. My stomach dropped. I told her I'd be there in 10. I called Emily, no answer. Texted, nothing. The calls went straight to voicemail by 6 p.m. That's when I started pacing. And I don't pace. I've been through layoffs, near-car accidents, even a mugging in college. I don't lose control. But this was different. The silence wasn't just silence. It was a message. She came back at 2:04 in the morning. No apology. No explanation. She didn't even look surprised to see me awake. Sitting in the living room in the dark like a man trying to read shadows. What? She said. That's all. Just what? I stared at her. She still had eyeliner on. Not smudged. Not worn. Fresh. Her hair wasn't messy. She looked groomed. Too groomed. You missed Ava's pickup, I said. My voice sounded far away, like I was hearing it through glass. She blinked. I forgot. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. That's when I knew something was broken. Not just in her, but between us. She didn't even try to fake remorse. Not a flicker of guilt. She walked past me like I was a coat rack. And that's when the cold switch flipped inside me. You know what people never talk about? The part where your love turns into something else. Not hate, not yet, but something colder. Something that sits behind your ribs like a rock. Keeps you sharp. Focused. The next morning, I took the kids to school, stopped by a hardware store, and changed the password to our shared iCloud account. She hadn't noticed. Not yet. By that night, I had a full download of her messages, her photos, her backups. I wish I could tell you it was a misunderstanding. I wish I found harmless messages. But no, it was all there. Ryan. Voice memos. Hotel bookings under fake names, complete with little notes like, black lace again? And, you were sore last time, smirking face. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't yell. I sat there and watched a video, yes, a video. She had saved under a calculator app. After I finished it, I sat for a long time with my hands folded in my lap. Then I stood up, took a breath, and began planning. Not revenge. Not a dramatic breakup. War. But war fought in silence. In steps. With the precision of someone who has absolutely nothing left to lose. She didn't know it yet, but she'd already lost. The next 3 days were the calmest of my life. And then came the first strike. The plan wasn't just to leave, that would have been too clean. Too easy. Emily didn't deserve clean. She deserved a mirror, one she couldn't look away from. I wasn't going to scream or throw things or beg for answers she'd just lie through. No, I was going to make her feel it. Quietly, deeply, piece by piece. I spent that Saturday putting things into motion. You want to disappear with kids without creating a legal mess? You need receipts. So I started logging. Every text, every timestamp, I took screenshots of her messages to Ryan, full threads, hotel receipts, voice notes, location pings. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was evidence. I also started separating finances. We had a shared account and 2 individual ones. Hers was always low because I paid most of the bills. I began quietly rerouting the income stream, changed the passwords on our utilities, removed her from the car insurance policy. Not enough for her to notice yet, just enough to know I'd laid the groundwork. That evening, she came home acting like nothing had happened. Hair curled, nails fresh, and a smugness she didn't even try to hide. "Did you cook?" she asked, dropping her keys on the counter like she hadn't disappeared for hours again. "Yeah," I said. "Kids already ate." She barely glanced at me before walking to the fridge and grabbing her overpriced kombucha. "Cool." "Not thank you." "Not sorry." Not even a fake smile. Just cool. It was a word that made me see red, not because of what it meant, but because of what it didn't. It didn't mean she cared. It didn't mean she saw me. I could have been a stranger in that kitchen and it wouldn't have mattered. That night, I watched her sleep. I know how that sounds, but I didn't do it with hate. I did it to remember. The curve of her face, the way her hand curled near her chest, all the things I once thought were beautiful. But all I could think now was, she's not yours anymore. She left, she just didn't walk out yet. The next morning, I woke up at 5 and packed a suitcase. Not mine, the kids'. I picked neutral clothes, some books, their favorite toys. I left her stuff untouched. The message needed to be clear. She didn't even notice the packed bags in the back of my car when she left for coffee with Kayla. Kayla, who was 7 months pregnant and definitely not meeting Emily that morning. By noon, I was at my lawyer's office. I'd called ahead, told him I needed a custody game plan, fast. I showed him the evidence. He didn't say much, just nodded slowly and muttered, "You're doing the right thing." When I picked up the kids from school that afternoon, they were laughing about something Mason said on the playground. I forced a smile, but it cracked around the edges. We didn't go home. I drove past the exit to our neighborhood, past the grocery store Emily loved, past the park we used to take walks in on Sundays. I kept going until the kids fell asleep in the back seat. Then I pulled into a furnished month-to-month rental I booked the night before. 2 bedrooms, small kitchen, ugly curtains. Perfect. That evening I sent her one message. "The kids are safe. We're staying somewhere else for a while. You'll hear from my lawyer." No threats. No begging. Just truth. And silence. The phone rang almost instantly. I didn't pick up. Then came the texts. "Jason, what the hell? Where did you go? Are you seriously trying to kidnap our children? You're being insane right now. Call me." Then nothing. Then, finally. "Oh. So this is about Ryan." Bingo. No denial. No shock. Just a one-line confession without the guts to say I was wrong. I didn't reply. She tried calling Ava. I'd already disabled the iPad's Wi-Fi. No contact unless it was through me. She had lost control. And that's when she started unraveling. Emily never handled losing well. She was the type who had to win arguments, even the dumb ones. Like where we parked at Target. Like whether we really needed a new set of wine glasses. Her need to be right wasn't just habit, it was oxygen. So when she realized she wasn't holding the reins anymore, she didn't apologize. She attacked. Sunday morning, the first knock came. I was making pancakes for the kids in our tiny rental kitchen. They were sitting at the wobbly breakfast bar, still in pajamas, giggling over Mason's syrup mustache when the knock came, sharp, rapid, impatient. I opened the door and there she was. Emily in full performance mode. She wore this beige trench coat she saved for important meetings, sunglasses perched high on her head, no makeup but lips still tinted, the kind of carefully undone look that screams I need everyone to know I'm not falling apart. "Are you serious?" she hissed, stepping in without waiting for permission. The kids froze. "Mom?" Ava said, unsure. Emily glanced at them, offered a tight smile, then turned back to me like we were actors in a stage play they weren't meant to see. "Take a breath," I said, keeping my voice low. "You're not here to fight in front of them." "Then give me a reason not to call the police," she whispered, voice trembling, not from fear, but fury. "You know I didn't kidnap anyone. You abandoned your own daughter at dance class 2 days ago." Her jaw twitched. "You left me no choice," I added. "This is a temporary separation for their sake. Not yours." She laughed. Actually laughed. This bitter, empty sound that echoed in the kitchen. "You're not the martyr here, Jason. You're a control freak who's pissed he couldn't keep my attention." That line, that right there, that was when my last remaining thread of sympathy finally snapped. I walked over to the drawer, pulled out a folder, and dropped it on the kitchen counter between us. Inside, printed messages, photos, time-stamped GPS records. A copy of the hotel receipt from 3 weekends ago when she told me she was attending a marketing conference. Emily didn't touch the folder. Just stared at it, lips parting slightly, then curling into something halfway between a smirk and a sneer. You really dug through my phone? God, Jason, how pathetic can you be? You mean the phone I paid for? On the plan in my name? She rolled her eyes, turned toward the kids. Come on, let's go. Mommy's taking you home. Ava stood up, confused, looking at me. No, I said firmly, stepping between them. Not until this is resolved legally. You're bluffing. I've already filed an emergency custody order. You'll get a visit from someone official this week. Until then, the kids stay here. You're ruining their lives, she snapped. You think ripping them from their mother makes you a hero? I think protecting them from a liar who disappears for nights at a time without notice makes me a father. For the first time, she flinched. Not physically, but her eyes, something cracked there. She turned toward the door. This isn't over, she said. Believe me, I replied, I know. She slammed the door. Ava started crying 5 seconds later. Mason asked if Mommy was mad at Daddy. I didn't have answers. That night, after they were asleep, I opened my laptop and finished the formal custody paperwork. I included every piece of evidence. Not to humiliate her, that wasn't the goal. The goal was to make it so she couldn't spin this, couldn't charm her way out, couldn't play the poor me card with the courts the way she had with everyone else. Because she would try. I knew her too well not to expect that. But what she didn't know. I was done playing husband. Now I was playing for my children. And I was going to win. 3 days later, she made her first real move. I was sitting in the rental's living room sorting through mail I'd had redirected when I got a message from an unknown number. You want to play dirty? Fine. Let's play. Then came the social media explosion. She posted a photo of herself with the kids from last year, all smiles at the beach, the kind of shot that made it look like we were one of those too perfect to be real families. The caption read, "Trying to stay strong for my babies during this confusing time. Please send love. Broken heart." What followed was a parade of sympathy from people who had no clue what was really happening. Her coworkers, her yoga friends, even her cousin out in Oregon commented things like, "You're such a good mom, Em. Keep your head up. Men just can't handle strong women. You got this. Let me know if you need anything, so sorry you're going through this." I didn't comment. I didn't message her. I just sat there staring at my screen while that hollow burn hit the middle of my chest again. She was painting herself as the victim. Twisting it. Rewriting history while the ink was still wet. I knew this was coming. But knowing didn't make it easier to stomach. I spent the evening writing my own statement, no drama, no accusations. Just the facts. Then I emailed it directly to a handful of people who mattered, my parents, her parents, the school counselor, the kid's pediatrician, and my boss, since she'd started dropping hints to people that I was mentally unstable and losing grip. The next morning, I got a call from Child Services. It was a wellness check, anonymous report, claiming the kids were in emotional distress and possibly being kept from their mother illegally. They showed up that afternoon. The caseworker was polite, professional, but I could see in her face that she'd expected to find something else. Maybe a disaster zone. Maybe a paranoid father unraveling. Instead, she found a clean home, 2 happy kids playing board games, and a father with a thick binder full of timestamps, court filings, and screenshots. She was gone within 20 minutes. That night, I got another message from Emily. "You're such a coward. Hiding behind lawyers and playing the victim. Grow up." And right below it, "Ryan says you'll burn yourself out trying to look like the good guy." Maybe he's right. She just couldn't help herself. She wanted me to break. To lash out. To throw words at her she could point to later and say, "See? He's the crazy one." But I wasn't going to hand her that ammunition. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer and went to brush Ava's hair while she told me about a book she was reading. That night, long after the kids had fallen asleep, I sat in the kitchen with the lights off and thought about who she really was. Emily used to say we were soulmates. She used to leave notes in my coat pocket that said, "You're my piece." She used to kiss me like she meant it. But those things, those memories felt like someone else's life now. A version of me who still believed her lies. A man who didn't know how good he was at ignoring red flags when they came wrapped in smiles and good intentions. I wasn't that man anymore. The new version of me? He was patient, focused, and not afraid to finish what he started. Because the real war hadn't even begun yet. And I was ready. 2 days after the Child Services visit, Emily escalated. I woke up to 3 missed calls from her and a voice message, muffled, rapid, and almost theatrical. The kind of performance meant for an audience, not a real conversation. She was crying. Not actually crying, but sounding like she was. Big sighs, sniffles between words. Jason. I don't know what's happening to you. You're not well. I'm scared for the kids. I want to talk. Please. Classic deflection. Turn the spotlight on me. Pretend like she hadn't detonated the life we built. Pretend like I had lost my grip. I didn't respond. I knew what came next. When Emily didn't get the reaction she wanted, she flipped the strategy. The very next message was a different version of her. We could fix this, you know? We were good once. I'm sorry. I made mistakes. But you're making it impossible to move forward. Made mistakes. Like she spilled milk. I stared at that message longer than I should have. Somewhere deep down, there was still a part of me that wanted to believe her. The same part of me that stayed up late every night during our 2nd year of marriage when she was just stressed and drinking a little too much. The same part that wanted her to be better. Be honest. Be the woman I once looked at like she was the whole damn world. But that part of me? He'd been slowly dying for years. And now he was buried. By Thursday, I got the letter. Formal court filing from her lawyer. She was challenging custody, citing emotional instability, removal of the children without consent, and my personal favorite, emotional manipulation and isolation. She was playing the long game now. That night, I got dinner with my sister, Amanda. I hadn't told her much, tried to keep it all contained, but the moment she saw me with the kids in a rental house, she knew. What's she done? Was all Amanda asked. I told her everything. Not just the affair, not just Ryan. I told her how Emily had checked out a year ago. How she'd stopped seeing us. How she looked through me now like I was furniture. And how I had finally stopped begging to be seen. Amanda didn't cry. She just nodded slowly, jaw clenched. She always needed someone to worship her, she said. You gave her that. That was your mistake. She wasn't wrong. After Amanda left, I sat in the hallway while the kids fell asleep. The hallway had a tiny night light, this soft, dim blue glow, and I remember thinking, this is where I am now. A hallway dad. A man sitting in a rented apartment with his entire life in 2 suitcases and a banker's box full of betrayal. And yet, for the first time in a long time, I felt grounded. Not happy. Not whole. But solid. Clear. I opened my laptop and started writing a letter to Emily. Not for her. For the court. For the record. For anyone who might one day wonder why I did what I did. I explained how she had distanced herself emotionally long before she distanced herself physically. How she had secret passwords, late-night rendezvous, laughable excuses about work calls at 1 a.m. I included the date she left Ava at dance class and forgot to pick her up. The time Mason cried because he couldn't remember the last time she tucked him in. I wrote it all out, methodical and cold. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted clarity. Because this wasn't a love story anymore. This was a custody war. And the opening volleys were over. She thought she could outmaneuver me with charm and crocodile tears. She had no idea who she was dealing with now. Because I had nothing left to protect except my children. And I would burn down the lies to keep them safe, she filed for emergency joint custody. The papers were served on a Monday morning, just as I was dropping the kids off at school. A guy in a windbreaker with a clipboard walked up to me in the parking lot, asked my name, and handed me the envelope like it was a pizza delivery. Ava and Mason didn't even notice. They were too busy arguing over whose turn it was to feed the class turtle. Inside, a motion, a typed affidavit filled with twisted half-truths, and a court date circled in highlighter. She was asking for 50-50 custody and temporary spousal support. Spousal support? From me. The same me who'd covered her car note, insurance, credit cards, her gym membership, her casual shopping accidents. While she was sneaking out to roll around with a man whose idea of a personality was protein shakes and fake deep quotes on his Instagram bio. But the most insulting part? She claimed I was emotionally erratic and potentially harmful to the children's psychological development. And her proof? Me removing them from a stable home environment without her consent. She didn't mention that she was vanishing for entire nights without explanation. She didn't mention that I cooked, cleaned, drove the carpool, paid every bill, and did bedtime solo for months while she came home reeking of hotel soap and smug satisfaction. She didn't mention Ryan. Of course she didn't. She still thought she could control the narrative and charm the courtroom like she charmed our friends. But this wasn't brunch with gossip and mimosas. This was family court. And I had receipts. I brought everything to my lawyer the next day. He read her affidavit, looked up, and said, "She's either a pathological liar or thinks you're the dumbest man alive." "Both," I replied. We spent the next 3 hours building the counterfile. I added photos, messages, GPS logs. I even found a bank transaction, a transfer from her account to Orion West for $300 with a note, "Thank you, Red Heart." I didn't even care what it was for. The message said enough. That night after the kids went to bed, she called. Blocked number. I picked up. "I'm being generous," she said. "No hello. No warmth. Just straight venom. You want to fight this in court, go ahead. You look unstable. I'll bring witnesses. You think they'll side with the guy who took the kids and ran?" I stayed quiet. She went on, "You think being quiet makes you smart? It makes you look guilty. It makes you look manipulative. I can play the game too." Then she said it, the line that made my blood go still. "Maybe Ryan should be around them. At least he'd teach Mason how to be a real man." I don't remember hanging up. I just remember sitting there, staring at the wall, trying not to break the phone in half. My ears were ringing. My hands shook. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I opened a blank document on my laptop and started typing. Not a rant. Not a revenge letter. A statement for the judge. I detailed everything. Her absences. Her affair. The emotional distance. The nights I stayed up watching the door, hoping she'd walk through it with even a sliver of honesty. I wrote down every time I caught her in a lie. Every appointment she missed for the kids. Every forgotten school event, every weekend she suddenly had to work late, every cold shoulder after I asked if she was okay. Then I closed it. Saved it under one word, truth. Let her come. Let her drag Ryan into court. Let her paint herself as the devoted mother, scorned and confused. Because when the masks came off and the evidence hit the table, she'd see what I'd become. Not the man begging for her to stay. Not the husband folding her towels and waiting in silence. I was the one holding the truth now. And I was done keeping it to myself. The court hearing was set for 9:30 a.m. on a Wednesday, but I arrived an hour early. I didn't want to walk into that courtroom rushed or rattled. I wanted calm. Controlled. I wanted her to see that I wasn't flinching. Emily strolled in at 9:28, of course. Late enough to make a scene, early enough to avoid getting called out. She wore a fitted navy dress, heels that clicked like punctuation across the tile, and a face like marble, unreadable, polished, cold. She didn't look at me as she passed, but I saw the corners of her lips twitch. That little smirk, the same one she used when she lied and dared me to catch it. Her lawyer, some smooth-looking guy in an expensive suit, whispered something to her. She laughed. Laughed in court. Like this was a game. The judge entered. Everything went quiet. Then it began. Her lawyer went first. He painted a picture of a loving mother blindsided by a sudden, irrational parental abduction. He used words like traumatized, confused, betrayed. Emily even dabbed her eyes at one point like she was pulling emotion from thin air. It was theater, and she was performing the role of a lifetime. When it was my turn, my lawyer didn't perform. He presented photos, messages, video logs, the timestamps, the missed pickups, the GPS records. Emily's digital fingerprints left a trail even her best fake tears couldn't cover. And then the real hit. We played a voicemail. The one where she said maybe Ryan should be around them. At least he'd teach Mason how to be a real man. The courtroom was dead silent. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. Emily went rigid. Her lawyer objected, too late. The judge waved him off. "I'd like to hear from Mr. West," the judge said. Her lawyer stammered. "He isn't present, Your Honor." "No, of course he wasn't. Cowards never are when the lights are on." The judge turned to Emily. "Is this man a part of your children's lives?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "No," she said, voice brittle. "He's not relevant." But the damage was done. By the time we left the courtroom, I'd been granted primary temporary custody pending further review. Visitation for Emily supervised 2 weekends a month. Her mask cracked in the hallway outside. As soon as the doors shut behind us, she spun toward me. "You manipulative piece of garbage," she hissed, voice low but venomous. "You think this is a win? This isn't over." I looked her right in the eyes. For the first time in a long time, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger wearing her face. "You're right," I said. "It's not over. But this time, I'm not fighting to keep you. I'm fighting to protect them." She blinked like she didn't understand what I meant. And maybe she didn't. Maybe the version of me she knew, the quiet, forgiving man, really was gone. Back at the rental, Ava gave me a drawing. It was of our little place, with all 3 of us smiling under a crooked sun. "There's no mommy," she said, frowning slightly. I didn't know if I should put her in. I knelt beside her. You can draw whoever you want, I told her gently. She hesitated, then added a cat instead. That night, I didn't check my phone. Didn't look for updates. Didn't scroll through anything Emily might have posted to spin her own version of events. I tucked my kids into bed, turned off the lights, and sat in that same spot in the hallway, hands folded, eyes open. For the first time in months, there was nothing behind my chest but quiet. Not peace. Not yet. But something close. She couldn't stand being irrelevant. That was always Emily's real fear, not being alone, not being wrong, just being unseen. So after the court granted me primary custody, she switched gears again. The bitterness didn't fade. It evolved. Her calls started coming daily, not to talk to the kids, not really. The kids would answer and she'd ask the same surface-level questions. How was school? Did Daddy make you dinner? Do you miss me? But it was never really about them. It was about me. About proving I was withholding, manipulative, twisting their minds. She'd try to coax something out of Ava, something she could repeat later, out of context, like a weapon. One evening, Ava told her that we'd gone to a little diner down the road, just the three of us. I watched her face through the FaceTime screen, saw that flicker of spite in her eyes as she smiled and said, "Must be nice, huh? Getting all of Daddy's attention now." Ava didn't know how to answer that. She just looked confused and handed the tablet back to me. I ended the call early and emailed my lawyer. We filed for monitored virtual visitation the next morning. I thought that would slow her down. It didn't. Instead, she weaponized Ryan. The very next day, she posted a photo on Instagram, her, Ryan, and the kids, my kids, from some random park visit during her weekend visitation. Ryan had his arm around Mason like he'd earned that right. Ava looked uncomfortable in the picture, her smile uncertain, her body slightly angled away from him. But Emily? Emily looked like she was posing for a campaign ad. The caption said, "Blended love. Building forward, not looking back." I saw red. It wasn't the picture itself. It was what it meant. That she was trying to erase me, replace me with someone she barely knew herself. A man who didn't know the difference between Mason's night terrors and his allergy meds. A man who called Ava Buddy because he couldn't remember her name the first time they met. I called her. Not out of anger, out of restraint. She didn't answer, of course. So I sent one message. Post one more photo of my children with him and we escalate to full restriction. Her reply? You don't get to control my life anymore. They love him. No, they didn't. They barely knew him. But Emily didn't care about that. She cared about optics. She cared about being the woman who moved on gracefully, who found love again, who played the survivor after setting the fire herself. That weekend, Ava asked me what blended family meant. I sat her down on the couch and explained it as gently as I could. It means when two people who were married, like mommy and daddy, go their separate ways and one of them starts a new relationship, sometimes they include that person in family things. She nodded slowly. Do we have to? No, I said. We only include people who make us feel safe. That answer seemed to settle something in her. Later that night, I found a crumpled drawing in the trash. It was the same family sketch from before, but this time Ryan had been drawn in with an X over his face. I didn't say a word. I just folded it and slipped it into a folder labeled Emotional Evidence in my desk drawer. Monday morning, my lawyer submitted a new request to bar nonparental figures from all visitation unless pre-approved by both parents. It was aggressive, maybe even a little risky. But I was done playing polite. She tried to take my kids and cast me as the villain. Now she was going to see what happened when the villain got smart. Because I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was protecting a future. One she wasn't going to rewrite again. The day the judge granted our motion to restrict Ryan from contact with the kids, Emily finally broke her act. Up until that point, she had played it smooth, the concerned mother, the misunderstood woman trying to move on with grace. But when the court ruled that no third-party adult could be present during her visitation without my explicit written consent, the facade cracked. She didn't even wait a full hour before calling me, this time not from a blocked number. "You spiteful son of a," she started. I hung up. She called back. I let it ring. Third time, voicemail? "You're pathetic. You know that, right? You can't stand that someone else wants me. You're dragging the kids through this just because you're bitter and alone. Ryan was good to them. Better than you ever were. They liked him." I played the message for my lawyer. He saved it. Labeled it hostile communication, post-ruling. Emily had a blind spot she never saw coming, documentation. She thought this was a war of emotions, of image. She was used to winning with charm and pity. But in the cold black and white of court filings, screenshots, recorded calls, and visitation logs, she was hemorrhaging credibility. A week later, I was awarded continued primary custody. Her visitation stayed limited, with no overnights. The judge's written opinion noted a concerning pattern of disregard for the emotional boundaries of the children. She posted a long paragraph to Facebook that night. A dramatic, teary, open letter to the court system talking about injustice, how mothers were undervalued, how she'd lost so much just for trying to find love again. She didn't mention the affair. She didn't mention the missed pickups, the lies, the messages I'd submitted where she said Ava was too emotional and Mason was a little dumb, like his father. She didn't mention how she once forgot Ava's birthday and told me it was because she was dealing with a migraine when she was actually in Vegas with Ryan. She was unraveling, and the thread she tugged at most was the one she thought would still work, me. She started showing up unannounced. Once at the kids' school, I got a call from the principal saying she'd tried to sign Mason out during lunch because she missed him. Once at the rental. Knocked for 15 straight minutes while I sat in the living room, listening, heart thudding. Eventually, I opened the door. She was barefoot, in sweatpants, makeup smeared, and furious. "You win, okay?" she said, voice breaking. "You get your custody and your pity party. What do you want now? An apology? For me to say I was wrong?" I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time, I didn't see the woman I used to love. I didn't even see the version of her I hated. I saw someone lost, clawing at the edges of a life she couldn't fake control anymore. She was untethered. And all her weapons, the manipulation, the performance, the seduction, none of them were working. "I don't want anything from you," I said. She flinched. Like I'd hit her. And then she smiled. Not a real one, the kind that people wear when they're about to lie. "You think the kids won't grow up and resent you for this?" I stepped outside, closed the door behind me so the kids wouldn't hear. "No," I said. "Because I'll never make them choose. I'll never lie to them. And I'll never put anyone before them. Can you say the same?" She stared at me for a long time. Then she said, "This isn't over." She turned and walked away barefoot across the gravel, not once looking back. It was the last time I saw her in person. The silence after that, it wasn't peace. Not right away. But it was clean. And sometimes clean is all you can ask for after months of drowning in filth. That night, Ava asked, "Is Mommy mad at us?" I crouched down beside her. "No, sweetheart," I said. "Mommy's just figuring things out. But she won't come back? She'll be around. But we're okay right here." And we were. Because sometimes survival doesn't come from winning. It comes from not letting them drag you back under. It's been 4 months now. 4 months of rented walls, a smaller table, and less noise. 4 months of learning how to braid Ava's hair without making her look like she got caught in a blender. 4 months of Mason waking up in the middle of the night and crawling into my bed, whispering that he had another big feeling. 4 months since I started sleeping without checking the door 4 times. Emily stopped fighting eventually. Not because she gave up, she never really does, but because her lies stopped sticking. Her final motion for joint custody was denied last week. The judge called her behavior reckless, evasive, and emotionally self-serving. Her own words, captured in messages and voicemails, betrayed her more than anything I could have said. She still has visitation under supervision. The kids go. Ava talks less afterward. Mason clings a little harder the day after. I don't press. I wait for them to come to me. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. That's parenting now. Holding space for their silence as much as their words. Ryan's out of the picture. I don't know what happened. Maybe he got tired of the chaos, maybe he finally saw what she really was when she didn't have someone else to blame. Doesn't matter. What matters is the last time he came up in court, the judge asked her flat out, "Is this someone who will be in your children's lives long term?" She hesitated, then said no. That silence after no was the loudest thing I'd heard in months. I still think about the beginning sometimes. About the version of me that folded laundry while she texted him behind my back. About the man who made excuses for her absences, who ignored the ache in his own gut, who called it marriage struggles because the truth was too bitter to name. That man doesn't exist anymore. He died the night I packed the kids into the car and drove away in silence. I'm not proud of how long I stayed or how many red flags I smoothed down with love. But I'm not ashamed either. Because I fought. For them. For truth. And for myself, the self I lost for years trying to make a hollow woman whole. People ask me now, close friends, my sister, even my lawyer, how did you stay so calm? How did you not lose it? Here's the truth. I did lose it. Many times. In the dark, alone. On the bathroom floor while the kids slept down the hall. In my car, gripping the wheel so tight I thought it'd crack. But I lost it privately. So I could stand tall publicly. So I could win this the right way. So when my kids look back one day, they'll know their dad didn't let bitterness raise them. They'll know I loved them more than I hated her. They'll know I didn't destroy their mother, she did that on her own. And they'll know that leaving wasn't revenge. It was survival. If you're reading this and you're stuck in that place, that hollow space where love feels like duty and your instincts are whispering this isn't right, listen. Don't wait for the loud betrayal. Sometimes the softest lies are the ones that rot the deepest. Leave with dignity. Protect your kids. Keep the receipts. And never beg someone to love you right. Let them lose you. It's the most honest consequence they'll ever face.